Hey guys, I'm Tim, and this is the Board Game Rundown. Today, I'm going to give you a tutorial on how to play Arrival Push, a game of vectors. All right, guys. So, welcome to the world of Arrival Push. We are playing as air traffic controllers, and our job is to coordinate all of our planes and land them safely in the center of the board at our gate. Super easy, right? Barely an inconvenience. Because you're going to have up to 8 planes all at once zooming in, and you're going to be coordinating this using all kinds of different things at your disposal. Engine tokens, just mitigating their speeds. There's going to be events that are going to come up, and they might help you. Most likely, they're going to inconvenience you. You're going to have random weather events that are going to be occurring. And so, yeah, you're just going to do your best. And then after 15 rounds, sounds like a lot, but it goes really fast. You're going to see who has the most points on the break board up here, because everybody knows an air traffic controller just needs a break, even if it's just for a few minutes. So let's get started. Every player is going to have a starting hand of cards. There are 6. There are 6 different airline cards. And so you're going to have we just bag them all together, but in your starting stuff, you're going to have all of those cards and all of the tokens to go along with it. And so these big tokens, prototype, are going to go on the board depending on what the starting position card says. And these small tokens are going to go on the appropriate card, and that's going to indicate that aircraft's speed. Also, while we're on the aircraft card, let me just go ahead and break it down real quick. So this guy right here, that's the airline. So that tells us which plane that actually is that's flying. Then the numbers here are the speeds. So the constellation, this thing in space, that is, if that plane is launching for the first time, that is going to be where it starts on the board and its starting speed. Then you're going to have these terrains. And so as a plane passes through one of these terrains, they're going to slow down to that speed. And if it's got the arrows that are up or down, you'll be able to spend engine tokens to mitigate that speed, to make that plane either faster or slower. If it only has the down arrow, you are only able to slow that plane down. So very important to note, because sometimes you just need planes to get the heck out of the way. And sometimes you're like, oh, if I could speed it up, I might be able to get it there earlier, or, move it out of the way. There's lots going on here. Then down here on the bottom, you've got any kind of weather restrictions. So this is a cargo plane indicated by the box. So boxes don't scream, so they don't mind if you fly through light weather. So that means I can go through any weather. That just tells me what kind of plane it is. And then this is the number of break points I will be scoring when I land this plane. Now this is a general aviation plane. They can fly through the light weather if they need to, but you're going to get a negative point every time you enter a space with light weather. But you're going to score 10 points when you land that plane. So super good. Here is a passenger card. They don't want any weather. You do not want bumpy weather on this passenger card. Bad times. They'd be very sad. And you do get 6 points every time you land it, and you will get 2 turbine tokens as well, engine tokens there, which are going to allow you to manipulate your speed. So super cool. The last here is a charter flight. Again, they don't like bumpy weather, but you can go through it. And this one is worth 6 points. So everybody's going to have these starting cards. They're going to have varying speeds, and varying point values and restrictions. You're also going to start with a hand of 10 cards. So these you are going to be able to use later. So they're going to give you different cards, maybe different speeds, different point values, different restrictions. So if you're trying to get a lot of faster planes out there just to score more points more often, you might be replacing some of your slower cards. Or maybe you've got low point cards, and so you'll have the opportunity to replace those with higher point value cards. But let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. So basically what's going to happen is when you start the game, you're going to start your hand. You're going to start with 10 of these cards right here. These guys, 10 of them in your hand. You're going to have these all laid out in front of you. So just so you can keep track of them. And then you're going to put the appropriate tokens on the appropriate card at their speed. Well, no, not even yet, because first thing we've got to do is get a starting position card. So here you're going to have a starting position card. This is going to tell you where all of your aircraft start based on the picture here. So you can use the weather icons as sort of a point of reference. So you have an idea. For example, this guy I know is going to start next to the water token, right? And then when you play it on the board, you want to make sure that that aircraft, that airplane, it's got that bold line at the top, that is facing towards your gate, because otherwise you're going to be very disappointed because you'll be moving in the wrong direction. And then you're going to set that aircraft's to that speed. That would be this guy. I would take this token. Is that the right one? Nope. Hold on. That's this guy. That's this token. I'm going to put it on the 2 as indicated there. I'm going to do that with all of my planes until I've seeded the board in my quadrant. You're going to see that the board is divided up into different quadrants based on colors. So if we were, these are green. So if we were playing as the green player, I'd have this by me. And now I am putting in all my planes based on the starting position here. So everybody's kind of equally close to starting with planes, landing, and everything. You're also going to start on the board with these weather tokens, and they are really they're a real wild card in this. So these weather tokens, these hexes, when they're that blue color, they are light weather. So again, that means that everybody but the passenger planes can fly through them. But you're going to get negative points if general aviation or the chartered flights fly through them. Cargo, boxes don't scream, right through, no problem. But you can pass through them. Then what's going to happen is at the beginning of every round, once everybody's all set up, and you're also going to start with 2 engine tokens. Sweet, because now you can throttle up and down. Then at the beginning of every round, you're going to draw a launch card. It's one of these guys. And it's going to tell us what locations will launch. First round doesn't matter because nobody's going to start with anything on these spots on the board because we already have all of our planes on the board most of the way in their way to the gate. So first round, not as big a deal. But in this one, the moon will not launch and the shooting star icon will not launch. But that constellation, that guy's launching. You will have the opportunity to gain these launch tokens. You can only ever have one at a time. But during the movement phase, you could go, you know what? I really want my plane that's on that moon spot to move. So I'm going to play one there. Now, everyone can launch moon as well. So you want to be kind of cognizant of when you play it, because you might want to wait and see if somebody else will do it for you. So once you've drawn the launch card, then we're going to draw weather cards. You're going to draw a weather card for each area on the board that has an active player. And then if you're not playing at full player count, you are going to also draw weather for the empty spaces that are adjacent to active players. So, for example, you could have a space where nobody's getting weather. So if I'm the last player on this side, and let's say Bob's over here and he's the last player on this side, we're going to do weather tokens for these areas, but not this one, because that's just too far away and nobody should be flying over there. So that just means nobody can fly in this area. But weather systems will still be happening here, and that will make sense when we get into movement. But we'd resolve a weather card. So the weather cards are going to do, they're going to tell you a couple of different things. I'll bring up 2 just so we've got some variety. The weather cards, you are going to, that means nothing happens. That's awesome. Blank space, nothing happens. Amazing. A plus, that means that weather is going to increase. Bad times. So let's say you have a cloud token, for example. Well, now that cloud token turns into this token because of the plus there. If it were already this, it would now go to this, which is very bad. Because like we said, the light blue with the clouds, you can fly through those. But when you get into that dark purple, stormy sky, impassable terrain, nobody's flying through that. So they can get really bad really quickly. Once it's here, if it's got a plus, nothing's happening. A minus means that it dissipates and the weather lightens. So the weather can get easier. You can even eventually take these tokens off the board. There are the spots. They're always going to spawn in the same places. So you will know kind of in advance, like, hey, I'm moving up in this way. And sometimes weather may form under one of your airlines that technically cannot move through the bad weather. That just means you have to move that plane out of that weather to make a valid move. Now, you will take negative points if you move into the bad weather and that was a plane that gives you negative for moving into the bad weather. So, but if you can move out of it, you don't get punished for it. So weather cards, super important. They change the board state every round and are pretty wild. And then you're going to resolve an event card. So the event card is it might give you a one-time thing. It might give you an ongoing condition for the whole round. So like this one is heads up from the TMU, reveal the top 3 cards of the launch deck to all players, and then you're going to put them back in the same order. So this is one of the nice events, right? So it's going to let you see all the next 3 launch cards. So you know in your head, do I need a launch token? If you can remember, do I need a launch token? No, I'm probably good. I think that one went every time. We're fine. And then you're going to put them back in every order. And so once you've gone through 15 event cards, that's the last round. So the event cards will help you keep track of how long you've been playing. Then after you've done this, that's when the game gets really wild, because now you're going to move. And you're going to move all of your planes, and you have to move your planes what their speed is. So the first thing you can do, optional, is to tick your plane to the left or the right one space, because planes turn slowly and you don't want to jostle everything anyways. So you can decide to tick it to the left or the right, and then you are going to slide that plane in the direction it is facing, the full amount of movement as indicated on your ship or your aircraft card. So, whether you're a 2 or a 1, depending on where you're at, that's how many that plane is moving. All of your planes are considered to move simultaneously. So they can sort of cross over each other. They just cannot end their movement in the same place as another plane. Step 2, after you've decided whether or not you want to turn your plane, you can decide to spend an engine token to increase or decrease your speed by 1, assuming that the plane allows you for a speed increase. They can all decrease in speed, but assuming that it lets you increase, well, there you go. You can spend an engine token, go a little bit faster, but you may still have to slow down at the end of the round, depending on where you're at. Then after that, then you're going to move the amount of spaces forward as indicated on the card. Then, after you've moved that plane, if you're going to flip over to the other side, there's a little X on that token. Flip that over. That just shows that you move that plane. Some people, when we play, will push it up to the top, so they'll keep it down and then they'll push it up to the top. Whatever you need to do to track it, but you're going to use these tokens on here to track your speed and if you've already moved the plane, because you got a lot of planes moving. So you really want to make sure you're tracking that well. Then after you're done moving the plane, you're going to check if you have moved over the indicated terrain at the top. If you have, you're going to adjust your speed down to show that the plane slows down as it's coming in, because on this board, there's several different types of terrain. The outer ring is mountains, and then you have forest, then you have grass, there's the river, and then there's the city right before you get to your landing gate. A few important things: you can only land one plane in your gate at a time in a round. So you really have to stagger their arrival, right? You cannot have all these planes coming in all at once. That would be a disaster. You cannot fly over one of your opponent's landing gates, because effectively you'd be blocking it. So you cannot fly through there. You can fly into your neighboring territory, but you must make sure that the player whose territory that is not going to use the space that you are going to be landing on. They get priority in their own airspace. But if they tell you, no, you can't go there, I'm going to go there, then they have to go there. They cannot deny you just to deny you. So very important rule right there. Once you have moved all of your planes and you've done so legally, Then we can move on to the scoring phase. And the scoring phase is pretty straightforward. Any planes you have on your gate, you're going to pick up. You're going to reference that plane's card. It's going to tell you how many points you got for it and maybe additional rewards. If it was a passenger plane, you might get the engine turbines. Then you have a decision to make. Do you keep that card, or you can discard that card, now freeing up that airline and that airplane to then maybe become a different one, perhaps one from your hand. But you're not going to put that card down yet. You're just going to discard this, remove it from the game, and now you're not worried about it. If at all, you cannot make a legal move. You do what's called making a deal. And this is probably the most complicated thing in the game. If you cannot make a legal move, you are going to turn your plane one space to the left or the right, or, one tick to the left or the right. Then you're going to move as far ahead as you can until you run into something. Then you are going to turn one more time to the left or the right. And then the plane will move forward one hex in front of you, either to the, and you have it says to the nearest hex. So if there's a tie between the nearest ones, the player gets to choose. Sometimes it might be blocked by something. You can never fly into outer space, and you cannot fly into the bad weather, right? And also you can fly over, but you cannot land on another person's airplane. After you've done all of those steps, you then you lose 2 points. So there are negative spots on that break room board. So be cognitive of that. So once everybody's all done moving, you go to the scoring phase. You're going to grab your plane off. You're going to score. You're going to get your reward. And then we will go to the draft phase. And then in the draft phase, what's going to happen is you can do one of three things. You can take 2 engine tokens, add them. Super useful. Engine tokens, again, they let you gear up your plane or slow it down. Very handy manipulating your plane speed with these guys. Super important. You could take a launch token if you don't have one. Everyone is allowed maximum 1 launch token. So you can grab a launch token. Now you've got it, and it gives you the option to, if that launch card doesn't come up that you need and you really want to get that plane off the ground, you can use that launch token and get that plane going. And then the last thing you can do is, if you have an available airline, you can take one of these cards from your hand. You start with 10 and put it down, and then you're going to assign that vacant airline to it. And now you are going to place also that card on the constellation where it starts. This one's kind of crazy. It starts on this landing strip here. That's wild. So that plane would get a huge jump start, right? Because that landing strip is not far from your landing gate, but that plane only moves at a 2. It does have an icon. So the turbine here means that you can spend an engine token to then speed up beyond your starting speed, which normally you can't do. And this also has the arrow indicator saying, hey, I am allowed to speed this plane up. So you can jump that plane up to a 2 and really start to land it. And if you can get that card going, you can, as long as it doesn't gum up the works, you could be landing that plane every couple of turns, but it's going to cost you some engine tokens and some good planning. So yeah, that is how a whole round goes. And everything is simultaneous. So everybody is moving all their planes at the same time. Everybody is, in the beginning, everybody is responsible for adjusting their own weather, and then maybe an adjacent one if it's empty. Like I said, 15 rounds, it goes very quickly because you're constantly doing stuff. There's very little downtime in this whole game. So yeah, you're going to play 15 rounds. Most points at the end win. The tiebreaker is the most engine tokens. So that's it. Another way to score points at the very end of the game is how close your planes are to your landing gate. So that if they're over the city area, you're going to get 4 points for each plane that is flying over the city. Now the river, that blue line around that, is going to be worth 3 points. The grass is worth 2 points, and then the forest is worth 1 point each. And so you will get some points at the end, even though you haven't landed all your planes. And we saw some people get a lot of points in some games we have played based on where they were, kind of rushing that at the end and really pushing up and getting there. This is a prototype, so not all the components are final or anything like that, but I mean, that's it. That's how you play the game. It sounds like a lot, but it's not that bad. It's not that bad at all. And again, no downtime. Everybody's moving. One other thing that might come up will be that sometimes an event will say, like, take the airline deck. That's these cards right here. And basically it's a randomizer in case, because something might happen to a specific airline. So you're going to shuffle these, you'll draw one, and then whatever airline it is, that's going to be the one that gets the event. And you would just indicate that by putting the event token on that card, so you know that that's the one that's affected. That's Arrival Push. If you've got questions, feel free, drop them in the comments. If we got anything wrong, we'll pin it up at the top. We'll let you know. But yeah, I think if any of this sounds interesting, you should check it out. And hopefully this video helps you get your game going nice and fast and easy with minimal bad weather. For the Board Game Rundown, I've been Tim. Thank you for watching.
And you can say the title's only 3 words.